Sure it's working. I will say for the video part, if you don't, it's better if you don't have your camera on because it takes more energy, but, oh, yep, it's on. Okay.
Just turn it on when we talk.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so the YouTube is live and running.
All right, well, I think we're ready to go here. I call this meeting to order. Mrs. Kraft, if you could please call roll.
Chairman Rivers,
Here.
Vice Chair Grumbles,
Present.
Ms. Toronto.
Here.
And welcome everybody to our regular trustee meeting today, April 20th, 2020. Before we get started, I would like to welcome our new administrator, Andrew King. His first day, some unusual circumstances to start, but welcome. And this is Andrew's first meeting tonight.
Thank you, Trustee. It's good to be here.
Welcome, Mr. King.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. I was happy to get into the office today and get the laptop and get rolling. So looking forward to working with everyone in Orange Township.
Great. Do we have any agenda changes this evening?
I do not.
I don't.
All right, and if you have any questions, any comments, please email us. The email is admin@orangetwp.org. During the meeting, we were doing our best to respond to any questions and get any information that residents need. First item on tonight's agenda is approval of the minutes. Do we have any questions, any changes?
I do not.
I make the motion to approve resolution 20-189, approving the electronic record of the April 6th, 2020 trustee meeting.
Second.
Trustee Rivers,
Yes.
Trustee Grumbles,
Yes.
Trustee Toronto.
Yes.
All right, and that takes us to our next item tonight, which is our zoning report. Ms. Bonnie?
Yes. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Well, good evening. So for the zoning report, I have for tomorrow, April 21st at 7 p.m. The Zoning Commission will be hearing application number zone-20-01, and that is the proposed multifamily district to be known as the Reserve at North Farms, the North Farms subdivision. Following that is Tuesday, May 5th at 7 p.m. The Zoning Commission will be hearing application number zone-19-07 of the Nova Lands PC district, which is where the hot tub store used to be. So hopefully planning on wrapping up with the Zoning Commission on that evening, and then we'll take that to the trustees. Following that, Zoning Commission on Tuesday, May 19th at 7 p.m. Application number zone-19-02 regarding the Turkey Hill, the new Turkey Hill off Green Meadows Road. It's a signage amendment in the existing plan district. And lastly, we do have one application for May's BZA Board of Zoning Appeals hearing for Thursday, May 21st at 6 p.m. And that's application number BA-20-06. They are requesting an area variance to construct an in-ground pool and pergola at 8533 Misty Woods Circle. And that is all I have to report.
Does anyone have anything to add?
I do not.
No, I think we've all got several emails and concerns that we've heard. And I know some surfaced today. I'm gonna peek at the admin email a few times here while we're going to see if anything surfaces specific, and we'll have to come back and address that if it does.
Okay, and just to let the board know, any emails of concerns or questions that I have received are saved as a PDF and will be shared with all the zoning commission members for tomorrow's meeting.
And that's at 7 p.m., correct?
Yes. And that'll be using the same platform we're using it. So Zoom, and also we'll be streaming on YouTube live.
And I do want to thank Michelle for, with our zoning and with our trustee meetings, all your help with the technology side here and keeping things moving along.
No problem. Happy to do it.
Maintenance report, Mr. Cowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hope everyone is well. I have 2 purchase orders, as you can see on the agenda. One is for purchase of road salt that we used over the winter from Delaware County Engineers Office. And the other is ask your consideration for purchase order for Decker Construction Company. The amount of that is $85,918.70. I did share with you on an email last week all the documents that I sent out to 3 contractors that were selected through a process through the Delaware County Engineers Office to do this type of work. Doug Rito helped to compose the documents for the pricing, bid quantities, and some drawings. And the work is to replace ADA ramps ahead of our paving program, as what normally happens here in Orange Township. So if you have any specific questions about those 2, I'd appreciate your consideration for both of those. And that's all I have for maintenance at this point in time. I do have a couple of things for parks I'd like to mention when we get to that.
Any questions?
I do not.
All right. I make the motion to approve resolution 20-190, authorize the issuance of a then and now purchase order to Delaware County Engineers Office for road salt.
Second?
Trustee Rivers,
Yes.
Trustee Grumbles,
Yes.
Trustee Taranto,
Yes.
I make the motion to approve resolution 20-191, authorizing the issuance of a purchase order to Decker Construction Company for ADA ramp replacement.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Rivers,
Yes.
Trustee Grumbles,
Yes.
Trustee Taranto,
Yes.
Thank you. And the park report.
Thank you for those ordinances or resolutions. I have a couple items, and I know Trustee Taranto wanted to talk about a grant writer, but just real quick, I'm going to have a request for qualifications for the board to review, and I'd like Mr. King to take a look at it as well. I'll send it out tomorrow. I worked on that over the weekend. I think it's pretty good. It's a RFQ for a parks master plan. I know it's something we've been needing to get done. Secondly, just to let you all know, we will be opening the swimming pool bids on Thursday, the 23rd at 1:30. We had a pre-bid meeting at the pool last Tuesday. We were outside. Everyone was respecting everyone's space. And I think we're going to open the bids at the pavilion just by the parking area where the employees park at Township Hall. We'll do that outside as well. The weather's supposed to be decent. Only takes about 5 minutes. So we won't have to be inside and crowding each other and have to worry about those issues. So on that, Trustee Taranto, I don't know if you want to talk about your grant writer or
Was that up next?
under Parks report, it is, yes.
Yes. Okay. So I had reached out to the grant writer that was hired last year. Hadn't heard from him, and then I did this past week. And he said it was something that he was still interested in doing. Bill, I apologize. Bill, you and I know that we were using county engineers. They were assisting us with some stuff. But I didn't know if we wanted to go back to, getting this grant writer up and running again. I'd like to do things a little differently this time. I think that the contract has some indemnifications in it. I don't think we can have that. I also would like Andrew to get very involved with him. And I would like monthly reports. So what's being worked on, what the status is, and because that's something that we didn't have this last time. We didn't know what was going on. So I guess we would just need to have a little bit more hands-on. The grants are very, very important, obviously, to Orange Township. We're very successful in getting grants. They make our levies go much further, as you know, Bill. And I also believe there's a lot on the table that we're missing out on right now that I'd like to see. For example, our special needs playground equipment. I think that's something that I believe that there's grants out there for. And this, our major road improvements. We have a list of what's coming up. I know that, I believe there's one that we're going out for on Orange Road. Is that correct, Bill?
High Public Works, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, and the other trustees, I had sent you that contract a couple days ago, Friday, I think. And I guess see what your thoughts are on moving forward.
Sure. I guess I'll go first and let Trustee Rivers conclude there. So you touched on a few things that I think are critical. One is that we now have an administrator, and I think with Andrew's background, and understanding that he's here to be an administrator, not an attorney first and foremost. I want to get that on the table because I know that there was some dialogue about that, and the training and the studies and the skill sets and the things that make attorneys valuable, though aren't lost. And one of those is critical, and that's effective writing, in use of language and diction and things like that. So I actually went and spoke with Andrew for a bit today. We were very distant from one another, so it was safe, but just kind of walked through the office, got his computer going, and started to get him up to speed so he can work remotely or contribute as needed there at the township. And this was one of the topics that we did discuss. The reason is several projects that you touched on too, Deb, with money. One of the big ones that we've not tapped into as much as I think we can is the capital budget. And that was something that the Township Association brought up when Lisa and I both went through the new elected official training. They were adamant that was, low-hanging fruit, if you will, that not a lot of people go after it. And I think we're the perfect township to do just that. So I'd like to see us be more aggressive in pursuing those capital budget contributions, especially for the Veterans Memorial. That's something that just north of us in Delaware, they use to fund the bulk of that memorial. And of course, Steve Kuckler, who is here local, was a big part of that. And so I think it'll be a good resource to have him as a veteran too, and actually still serves in the Guard capacity, if I'm not mistaken. But we have enough people here for projects like that where we can get support. Bottom line, long-winded response here is that I think Andrew, I would like to get him to look over this, to get a week or two underneath him of looking into things of this nature, and then really have us at the next meeting kind of revisit with him to see how much he wants to bite off with our internal team versus pay and source out As you know, I went and retrieved all the communication with the prior grant writer. I did have some concerns that that kind of drug along, and we didn't get any. I didn't see any meat, the substance that we got back. I know that there are some differing opinions. Look, one thing I don't want to do is blame one person or the other. We'll just call it a disconnect that took place. And, you know, we paid some good money out. We don't have any grants. So I think if nothing else, once we get our new administrator aligned and we kind of calibrate as a group, and in addition to our new fiscal officer, kind of all come together and align around this topic. It's one that branches into all of our sectors. And I think then we should sit down and potentially bring in Mr. Freeman or whomever we pick and have a discussion on just exactly what you said, expectations, the past. Is there something that's there right on the edge that we could, you know, quickly get a hold of? I know some of the dialogue I found and sent to the board pertain to trails, always a hot topic in our township, things of that nature. So is there a quick win we can get? How can we get some return on that initial investment quickly that we already made? And then, you know, how do we operate, go forward, to your point? But I do want to give our new administrator a chance to dive in first before we make those kind of decisions. That might be an opportunity for him to work with the team, et cetera.
My biggest question right now, Bill, is the 2 grants that equal almost $1 million. Those are moving forward, correct? We do have assistance with those for whatever deadlines we have, things we have to meet by certain dates.
Are you talking about the 2 trail grants?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Part of it was Bale Canyon, right?
but the majority of it is Lewis Center Trail Phase 2.
Okay.
And then we have North Road Trail, which I'm in the process of putting documents together to get reimbursed for that. Miss Hughes had a grant for that as well. I think it's a couple $100,000 actually.
Right. So we haven't lost anything. Everything is.
Oh, no, we haven't lost anything.
Okay.
No, not at all.
No, and Bill, since we've had some turnover, if you come across those documents, could you send those to the board, fiscal office, and also Mr. King? It would be just to help us further keep aligned and support each other.
Sure, I will. Absolutely.
That'd be great.
And
Yep.
Andrew, I will forward you the contract that we previously had with Andrew, with Alan Freeman. So you can see what the previous agreement was.
Sounds great. I'm happy to look at it.
Yeah, and I think you both have covered pretty much all the bases here. I think we just need to get this to where everyone's on the same page as far as what work's been done, what we left off, what work was done last year. So everyone understands where we stand, and then we got the right plan in place going forward.
Yep, and I want to surface one last thing here, since we were on the topic of Orange Road. One thing that we did discuss, I think it was the first week or two, Debbie, and I know we were crossing paths, and you told Bill to make sure he covered it with the rest of the board, and it was the topic of our funding and levies. And I know that we have we have to look at our roads levy a little bit and make some decisions and tighten up there and come up with some finances. One of the things I did want to surface when we started talking with the finance authority about how we work together, and we started talking with the county about how we work together. For me, that started after the election, and I had a window of opportunity there to meet with folks before I started my official capacity. And one of the things I really wanted to dive into with them when we spoke was, hey, how are we doing? Have we taken a step back and looked at our infrastructure from a standpoint of, does it make sense for us to have what we have under our control? Does it make sense for the county to have what they have? Where are we at from that? Historically, when we look at usage and we look at how that's transitioned over time, you look at a Lewis Center Road and that, county's taking care of that. I would argue that Orange Road's probably right there with it from a traffic standpoint. And when we look at the infrastructure in place, we look at the challenges at Orange Road and constraints with the tracks, with the number of schools that are accessing and utilizing that road, the intersection of the trails, parks, stuff we've really struggled to navigate through from a financial standpoint. And as we've grown, I think we really need to look at that as we dive into Bell Canyon. That's opened up in Polaris. We go all the way across up into Powell and Liberty Township area through Carriage Road there. Does it make sense for us as a township to keep a hold of assets or infrastructure, that major thoroughfare, east-west corridors, that kind of thing, as we grow or as we look at our challenges and constraints? So nothing for today to formally decide. I do know in talking just informally with the county that they expressed, a willingness to at least discuss this type of thing with us. And so with the new administrator and changes we've had, it's a good time to surface those kinds of things. So would ask that the board maybe keep that in mind, and we look at that for a future meeting as far as determining how realistic that is.
All right. Well, I think we're all on the same page here, though, as far as the grant writing piece. And like Mr. King, we've got a couple of different items here for takeaways from tonight, but that's definitely one that we want to make sure that we get moving on, and we got a solid plan in place going forward.
Sounds good.
I see we don't have anything for our public safety report, but I know Chief Noble is on. Chief, is there anything you would like to add tonight?
Only if you have any questions, sir.
I do not. Anyone else?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Fiscal officer report, Mrs. Kraft.
Can we,
Okay.
one thing I did want to ask Chief about is the department, how they're doing, everything, with the uptick in the pandemic and that kind of thing, just to get a general sense for the community, since a lot of them are tuning in to watch this. If you could convey to the community and the board here, how's the team doing? Everybody, is everything going okay? Is there any needs, anything you want to share update wise, just a generic general update?
Thank you. I think what I can share, which is for public knowledge, Delaware County does have 106 confirmed cases. That is from their website. As far as the department is doing well. Spirits are fine. We have a supply of personal protective equipment that fits our needs at the time. I have to say that our run volume for Orange Township, we've not seen near the uptick in call responses. We have had a few. We've had some confirmed cases. We've had some suspect cases. Our personnel are operating under our incident action plan. And right now, everybody seems to be doing well. So I'm hoping that in the next week or so, we can start to see a plateau. And then we can start on that downhill slide, if you will. So we've tried to get the messaging out to our residents through the Facebook page. Thank you, Amanda, for getting those messages out, trying to educate the public as to those signs and symptoms, when to call 911, and what our personnel will look like when they arrive. All of our personnel are wearing surgical masks outside of the station on property and apparatus. If personnel come in contact with the public, whether they are engaging them as a customer or whether they're just out in the general public, they will be wearing an N95. So we tried to educate the public as to what they would look like so that they're not overly concerned, as well as the other PPE that they'll be wearing. And as you, the board, know, we do have an agreement with Patel for cleaning our N95 masks. Late last week, we found out that that service is now free. So we will not be paying for that service. I took masks the first week. We really didn't have enough of a load to take last week, but I do believe this Friday we will be taking a second round of masks to them. Right now, they're on a 2 to 3 day turnaround time. So all in all, I know that was a bit of a long-winded response, but I kind of wanted to touch all areas, if you will. Personnel are doing well. Be happy to get through this. And I think not only from a local level, a county level, but a state level, we've learned a lot, and hopefully we'll have some takeaways from this for future.
Thank you. Mrs. Kraft.
Okay, thank you. A few things to note. We've got 3 then and now purchase orders, which I'll talk about. I also wanted to bring to your attention, I forwarded to the board an email from the Delaware County Auditor and Delaware County Treasurer. They, just like Franklin County, Delaware County is considering whether to extend second half tax payments by a month to provide some relief during these times to residents and our commercial customers, or residents. But we won't probably have any information on that for another week or two. But that is a discussion out there. Looking at our cash balances, especially in our investment accounts, which is about 16 million right now. So we shouldn't, a delay of a month isn't really going to impact that. But I do want to get with Bill at some point just to look at his road levy money to make sure payments for any planned road construction won't be impacted if they do make a change. It hasn't been decided one way or the other, but we just want to be out in front of it just in case. Any questions on that?
No, thank you.
No.
Okay. Then I've got 3 then and now purchase orders. One for Easton and Smith we received their January invoice. It kind of got a little lost in the transition between Mr. Mayor and I, but we do have that, and for $10,279.05 for January legal expenses. We have a then and now to the Delaware County Auditor, and this is our payment for the health department, our cut that we're due, and that information's in your backup, but that's $23,425.75. And then we have a then and now purchase order for the laptops that Ben thankfully set us up with, so we can work from home. I know that's been a lifesaver for me, so thank you, Ben, for your help with that. But that's $5,865.90. And then last but not least, we have a amended resolution. At the last meeting, resolution number 20-178 was listed for $7,500 for payment when the actual amount was $10,250. So just a new a resolution to amend that one.
Do we have any questions? Anything to add?
Yeah, I haven't. I know with we had some back and forth about the redacted versus unredacted legal invoices. And just to clarify, was in the office today, but I didn't check for a copy of that. I'm assuming it's there. But I think that's important from a board perspective. So appreciate everybody working together to make sure that we have that as a board to approve.
I have not seen that. I think as a trustee also, I should be able to see the complete unredacted invoice.
Yeah, and we will. I think that was the agreement when I spoke to Lisa, and I I think that's what she was able to actually really appreciate you diving into that, Lisa, and kind of going above to reach out to the firm and Chairman Rivers to navigate through that. So thank you. And I agree with you, Deb, that it's critical for us to know what we're approving. I leave notes on the checks. I did a couple today. And so, we have to do our part there. And so I'll look forward to getting that and reviewing it so that I can, approve the expenses and due diligence there. But that's it. The laptops should be there, and there might be another charge associated with the software. Just wanted to bring that up while we're here with all the team and the directors that helped. Thank you for everybody and the department heads for stepping up and helping with that, and appreciate the collaboration since March on all matters.
Yeah, and with I know there's been transition here and some different changes in the processes. So I think we have all the information. It's just a matter of sorting through it. So that might be another item to add to Mr. King's to-do list to kind of help get that where it needs to be. But I know we have everything. It's just a matter of getting caught up.
Trustee, what were you asking me to do in this context?
With Eastman and Smith, as far as how we handle some of the billing and different things, there's been, as a new vendor, just some transition in the way they handle the processing side of it. So just kind of coming through all that, making sure everything's been over to the board and is handled properly. It's just a matter of sorting through it. Like I said, it's just one of those things. It's a change in how we've done things. So it's just adjusting.
So it's the billing from Eastman and Smith we're talking about, correct?
Correct. Yeah, correct. So there was invoices sent that were redacted. And so from a board perspective,
Gotcha.
we need to look into the matter and make sure that, oh yeah, I recall.
Sure, absolutely.
And I thought the invoice covered more than January, but could have been wrong. I know that we were looking at another legal provider too. I saw the check for that today. So, just from a legal standpoint, on my end, I started to get concerned when we're looking at the aggregate of this, and we have different parties doing, all the different types of work in their silos, and we get a bill, and we collectively look at that bill. We have to make sure that we're doing the best we can from a township perspective. And so, while we're on the topic of that, I think, Andrew, I would say in the coming weeks ahead, we're going to have to look at where those legal funds are going,
Sure.
and decide on some of these matters. For example, with Michelle's group and zoning, they will drag along, and it requires that a lawyer was involved before. Now they're still around after we made a transition in the township. We're 5 months, 4 or 5 months out. We're still getting bills caught up for thousands of dollars. At some point, we're going to have to decide what direction we're moving from a legal provider standpoint and move. And having duplicate invoices for those types of things surface in April, billings in January. We got to be better than that on our books and our timing, our payables and receivables and that kind of thing. We're going to partner with vendors. We need to set that expectation that we're getting our invoices and our billings in a timely fashion so that we can reconcile those and be accurate in that process. I know, as Ryan said, this is a newer situation and we're calibrating still, but I know past practice, we accommodated that more than I think it is ideal. And I'll
I
leave it at
actually asked for that invoice back in February and never got it. So I'm curious what happened to it.
I don't know. I know that I just, after talking to Eastman and Smith, I do have the February invoice for them. I didn't have a chance to get it on. By the time I got it all done, the agenda was already set. So that will be on the next meeting. So whether or not you guys approve this one or not, the February invoice will be on the agenda for the next meeting as of then and now. And I do expect to get the March invoice this week after talking to their billing gal.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I think we should get the unredacted copies. We can look at those, vet those, and then we can, if we can punt this one, or if we have to do a special meeting or what have you, and get all of that done in aggregate. I think that would be ideal.
Trustee, I absolutely agree with you. I think, I can understand the thought behind redacting it because it is potentially disclosing privileged information, but all three of you would be within the circle of privilege as the officers for the township. So,
Right.
I'm happy to follow up with Bridget. It sounded like fiscal officer has already done that. So, but I'll be happy to do that. And I think Trustee Grumbles, is what you also said is true, especially with zoning. My experience is there are a lot of documents to review. There can often be multiple meetings, and it can be informal meetings. There can be phone calls. There can be reviews of multiple drafts, and it's very easy for those expenses to quickly amount into a significant sum. So I think your concern there is also understandable.
All right, so do we want to then hold off on that one and approve the rest of the
I
resolution?
personally think that's the best path forward. And Ryan, if we talk with Eastman and they would, the timing of this becomes a problem if we wait the full 2-week duration with the Zoom setup and everything. If we hop in for a special meeting for that and that alone, or any other, payables we have out, or, we can get a couple on there, that kind of thing. I think it'd be fine.
I'll call their billing person tomorrow and find out how desperately they need their money. If they need it in the next week, then we'll call a special for it. If not, we'll just put it on the next agenda.
Thank you, Lisa. Just about being good business partners. So we have to, extend the grace we expect. So I appreciate that.
All right, I make a motion to approve resolution 20-193 to authorize the issuance of a retroactive then and now purchase order to the Delaware County Auditor for Health Department fees.
Second?
Trustee Rivers,
Yes.
Trustee Grumbles,
Yes.
Trustee Taranto.
Yes.
I make the motion to approve resolution 20-194 to authorize the issuance of a then and now purchase order to Gov Connection Incorporated for laptops.
Second.
Trustee Rivers,
Yes.
Trustee Grumbles,
Yes.
Trustee Taranto.
Yes.
And I make the motion to approve resolution 20-195, which is to amend resolution 20-178.
Is there a second?
Second?
Trustee Rivers,
Yes.
Trustee Grumbles,
Yes.
Trustee Taranto.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Administrative report.
Good evening, trustees. You have in front of you a then and now purchase order. It's to EB Employment Solutions, which is also the difference card. So if you're familiar with that, this is the name of the vendor that they're under. And this is for the March invoice, but we had received it after the permanent appropriations were approved. So it needs to be a then and now because it's over the $2,500 amount. If there's any questions on that. And then the second item was discussion at Township Hall regarding staffing during COVID-19. In talking with everybody last week, we thought about extending the staffing schedule through the month of May, depending upon what comes down from federal, state, local level, through government or health officials. If we needed to continue to staff Township Hall through teleworking, we thought we would have that in place. That way we weren't scrambling last minute. And if they phase back in the workforce or they phase back in opening up some of the stay-at-home orders, we'd have something in place and then we could adjust as needed. But I think for the most part, the team worked together pretty good last week. We picked the days that best work for our schedule. Some people had some pre-approved time off, so they just worked around that. But everybody at least has 1 day a week in the office, and coverage is from 8 to 4:30. Sometimes there's more than one person in the office, but they do a really good job of making sure they maintain their distance and cleaning afterwards in a community area, and then making sure the door to Township Hall remains unlocked, or I'm sorry, remains locked during those hours.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, I want to thank everybody for their collaboration on one of the things I've been most, I guess, impressed and proud of with our team is when this stuff comes up. It's there's no shortage of initiative, and everybody's stepping out of their swim lane a little bit to contribute. It's been much appreciated. This is another instance of that where, I saw this pop up and spoke with Amanda, and then her and Michelle and the whole team within a few minutes had the calendar updated, and we haven't finished finalizing all of it for May. But needless to say, to be able to be that agile in this environment is reassuring and much appreciated. So thank you all for that. I do want to touch on the fact that today we had a bit of an anomaly with Mr. King coming in to get his material, and then had some work being done on the building and several people in the building at one point. I know there's going to be times where that kind of thing happens, and I certainly want to encourage people, if it gets to a point where you're not comfortable or you are concerned, feel free. That happened today, and we addressed it and quickly remedied that. Everybody's got a different level of comfort with this, and that's why we've enabled people to work remotely, and doing our best to accommodate everybody's kind of personal position on this within the consistencies and ability to do so. So we'll keep doing the best we can, and as Andrew gets acclimated and settled in, I'm sure it's one of those areas he'll take charge of. But yeah, we may have to be reasonable and understanding as we transition. No different than the fiscal office. Lisa may have to come in periodically as she's onboarding and working with Patty, and we'll continue to do our best. But certainly, when you're talking with your staff and your team, make sure everyone knows that it's not a personal thing. No one's doing any of this to make them uncomfortable or because they want to do that. We're all doing the best we can. So we have to be reasonable with each other, and we'll keep doing the best we can.
Ben, if I can add, I did ask Amanda put this on the trustee agenda to also discuss zoning hearings or really any board meeting in May. I guess what I'd like to ask the trustees for today's meeting is, should I plan to have virtual meetings for May? I mean, we can do an update of this every trustee meeting, but
I think we should, I personally think we should plan to extend this into May, especially with the governor's direction on schools today, which would, that obviously indicates that May isn't going to be completely free and clear.
And if you look at the phases that they're proposing, I feel like phase 1 would include Ben going through May.
Right.
okay.
I think it's to your point, Michelle, it's one of those things where you can plan to accommodate the current status quo, and we can always peel back. But I would rather be proactive for worst case, and then have to ease into best case than the opposite.
Okay.
I will say, when Michelle and I were discussing that last week, we thought it'd be best to have this in place and then depending upon what the stay-at-home orders are. If they're extended, if they're modified, we could, adjust accordingly. And I will say also, last Friday, I had my county communications meeting with all the public entities, and most of them are having some version of virtual meetings or continuing their modified schedules at least through May. And they're hoping by then to kind of phase back some type of normalcy to their offices. So I think that's keeping in line with all of our community partners as well. If we continue to have any zoning commission, BZA, or trustee meetings through the Zoom application as well, since others are doing it, and just to be safe.
Okay, great.
That's all I have. Thank you.
So Deb and I are okay with that. Mr. Rivers, how are you? You okay with that direction too?
Yeah, no, I think that, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much the obvious direction to go in for now. And hopefully things change and we can all be back together soon. But I would say definitely for the month of May, the odds are we're going to still be online.
Sure. One thing that, and I apologize, this is related to that, with Bill, with your departments, with parks, maintenance, that kind of thing. When we talk about remote work, I know it impacts your group quite a bit different than the rest of us and some of the critical work they do. I know we're due to designate with the Families First coronavirus, I think it's Relief Act, what's what, and I know Amanda's planning to bring that up. But with your group in particular, I do want to start including updates at these meetings, especially for the public, but also internally, a weekly update as far as any impact they're having, any constraints they're facing with working because of the more physical nature. And the springs here, we're going to see, upkeep, an uptick in upkeep, if you will. I know mulch has been a hot topic in the past for certain residents and points in the community where we've had some mulching mishaps, if you will. I saw the mulch bill today when I was signing checks, and I celebrated a small victory there. So, mulch before May, it was a big win to see that. But just keeping us abreast on, are they good from a capacity standpoint with the parks being shuttered a bit, and where we can assist, making sure that we are doing our part to keep engaged with your group, Bill, because I know we don't see them as often as others.
I appreciate that. I talked to our superintendent this morning about that same. I think you and I had a brief discussion about. I brought that up the other day, Trustee Grumbles, just about that type of thing, a report. So Aaron did share with me a report for what their activities today, and I expect to get that from here on out. How do you want me to share that with you? He's just sending me an email with, hey, this is what we did today, and that's what I asked him to do.
Yeah, not so much a list of daily actions as much as it is like your weekly summary you send in now.
Okay.
Where we articulate, here's what's on the docket this week, right? We're going to mulch North Orange. We're gonna shore up. We've since we're not fixing and sanitizing and all that, we're gonna pick up, and we know the parks are getting utilized more from a trail perspective. So in other words, we're gonna displace our FTE capacity from one function, and we're gonna have an uptick in cleaning and litter and trash, right? So just a summary of kind of how they're navigating through this, since we don't get that much face time with them, especially in this environment.
Okay.
And just to keep them engaged and also so they understand that we're, that we are paying attention and we do care about the work they do, and our community certainly does. I also think with the community, seeing the trucks, seeing the team out there, the aesthetics, I think are more meaningful now than ever. Any ounce of positivity as people are driving, you can see that on social media, you can hear it in conversation. All that stuff goes a real long way. If people are out walking, it's like, wow, township's doing a great job of keeping the parks clean. There's the litter, they reacted, they got that done. They got the bench moved down the next day. I mean, those are all, it's the little stuff right now that's going to go a long way. And with us displacing that FTE capacity from one function, where can we stick certain functions to bring up and accommodate this shift and dynamic that we're seeing. If that makes more sense, Bill, I apologize. We can talk more if you want.
No, that's fine. I understand. So certainly I'll get you a report I'll share with the board. No problem.
Thank you, Bill.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. I make the motion to approve resolution 20-196 to authorize the issuance of a then and now purchase order to EB Employment Solutions LLC for the March 2020 invoice 59215.
Second.
Trustee Rivers,
Yes.
Trustee Grumbles,
Yes.
Trustee Taranto.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
The next thing on the item was the Facebook. And this is something that we discussed the last meeting, and I drafted I took our current policy that we had, I made some changes to it. I worked with Chris Betts at the prosecutor's office. We updated it a little bit more, made sure it was more clean, concise. We condensed some stuff. We took some things out. We made some changes. The current policy was drafted in 2014, so it's been an extended period of time. Things have changed a little bit since then. We did add in one of the administrators to be the township administrator. We didn't put in names this time. We actually put in positions, that way in case positions change, you're not having to update the policy. And then also Mr. Betts helped to draft the county's and the prosecutor's Facebook policy. And so he took some pieces from that and put it into this one as well. So this is for your approval. There's also a resolution. I apologize, this didn't get in the original backup. It was sent out on Friday. He got back to me late last week after the deadlines, but I do know that Mary Ann put it in the additional template. So if there's any questions, we can go ahead and approve it tonight. If there's still discussion about it, we can take it back and work on it and bring it back for further approval at another meeting. I didn't know if anybody had any questions on that.
So the resolution in the packet is correct, right?
Yes. That's what Mr. Betts provided to me and said it was a resolution that regardless of whatever policy we're making or rule change, it was one that we could interchangeable. So it's specific to the Facebook policy update. Correct.
Okay.
And if this does get approved, it would go out on the township's Facebook page, and then also it would go onto the township's website. There's a section that we have some of our policies. I believe it's maybe under transparency where we have some additional policies, just some general rules, and it would be updated at that location as well.
Do we have any questions? No?
It pretty much covers everything that the original did. It's more updated. It's more generalized.
Is that something that you're happy with? Is that the direction you were thinking, Trustee Taranto?
Ryan, what were you were looking for some specifics?
Well, I think it makes, as far as who's on the page, and gives us some, we've always got availability. Something comes up, there's an emergency. It's not that you have one person is always on the clock. So if there's an issue, we need to get communication out immediately. We have more than one person that can be contacted to update any information.
Did you want to add a trustee?
Well,
as one of the administrators?
I think we agreed to add our new administrator, and that's in the new policy, right, Amanda?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct, Trustee.
Okay.
I think it's honestly, I would prefer we don't have a board member with access to the Facebook page. I think, and it's not a slight or a shot at anyone here, but with the past, in the history of Facebook and all of that, and then with the, elections and that kind of thing that can take on a life of their own. I think the right thing to do would be to surrender that to someone and hold each other accountable as board members so that, you know, we continue to do what we've been doing the last few months, and allow the page to operate the way that it should, and continue to share content from the page as a center point of communication. So I think that would be a good thing to have, you know, the administrator there, and as a backup, and team continue to back each other up in that regard. So I'm okay with that.
I would say in some of the trainings I've been to, that is best practices to go ahead and share that content. That way the original source content is there. And then also there's no unintentional biases. If a trustee or something were to put something on, it's coming from a vetted party, in this case, the township. And so it speaks on behalf of the township. So that was some stuff that at OTA they had recommended. And then of course they used our page as one of the recommended best practices. They actually picked our page as one that uses best practices.
That's good. Thanks for the work on this. And I think that if we lock this in as a board, you know, one of the good things here is that we set the tone. And so in the future, with changes that will inevitably come at some point in time, the more we do with the way our board's operating now to secure that, I think will be more, it'll solidify our future a lot more and make it harder to go in any other direction than what we're doing now. I like this a lot.
Good.
The trustees, the one thing I just noticed, and far be it for me to be critical of my former colleague Chris Bested's drafting, and it's not necessarily a reason not to adopt this tonight. I just want to point it out in the fourth paragraph. It says the HR communications manager shall be the only person to remove comment. It doesn't provide for any extended absence. So like if Amanda were to be on vacation for a week, it doesn't really contemplate that. Again, that's not necessarily a reason not to go ahead with the policy, but I did notice that as I was leafing through it, it didn't account for anyone temporarily filling that role.
I think that's an easy fix too. I would just say the HR and the township administrator. Anybody who's the administrator should be able to do that, actually.
Right. And we currently use Archive Social, so it backs up all of our content. That's where all of our electronic communications are kept. So anybody that makes a change to their comment, they edit their comment, they delete their comment themselves, or a picture or some type of engagement, that's all tracked. Or typically we wouldn't be able to have that access. So if something were to be removed, either because it didn't meet the policy or it was in violation of the policy, and we have had that, I've worked with the prosecutor to make sure it was sufficient to remove it or hide or block it. We had, prior to Archive Social, we did a screenshot of it and saved it. Now it's saved electronically, but we need to have a secondary. I think that would be easy to add in. We could probably.
And can it just be any of the administrators?
Well, as long as everyone's on board and is okay with that change, we can just add to the resolution with changes and update that language after.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And Andrew, you comfortable making the changes proposed? They're going through, doubling back through that, making sure there's nothing else, and then we'll get that solidified.
So just to clarify, when you say, so right now it says the HR manager shall be the only person, HR communications manager. Do you want that to say HR/communications manager and the township administrator, or all the people mentioned in paragraph 2, which is township administrator, HR communication manager, fire chief, and township administrative assistant? Either way is easy to fix. I just wanted to make sure I was captured what was.
I missed the other two. My preference for this entire policy, from an editing and control standpoint on the Facebook page, would be to have two points, a primary and a backup, instead of I think 2 points would be sufficient. I think it should be our communications manager /HR in this case, and our township administrator. I think that's sufficient. I would say that if you get more broad than that, we expose ourselves again to potential conflict, and I would propose that another change is that we eliminate the many parties and just have it be the two, and have that be consistent through the document as far as controls and equal share of authority, if you will. Roles and responsibilities aren't going to change, obviously, with Amanda being the primary on that in this case, and then you're the backup just by function.
So on paragraph number 2, when it defines administrators, right now there are 4 offices that are included in that definition. So you would like to limit paragraph 2 to just the HR/communications manager and the township administrator.
Yes, sir. And I'll look for board consensus on that if they're okay with it. And there's different comfort levels too. Just to get that on audio, I think there's different levels of comfort with social media, and with the role with administrator and communication manager. There's some implied ability there to navigate through social media, and also responsibility as well. I would say that's something we don't want to farm out to subordinates. It can put them in a really uncomfortable position. And at that, I'm good if we can make those changes on my end. The only other suggestion I would have, and I apologize if this has already been suggested or communicated and delved into, there's also the ability to have comments go into a queue, and they're approved before they're broadcast. It's just a simple setting on the page. And from with the environment we're operating in on social media today, especially virtually now that everything's online, it might be worth considering adding that caveat as well as we set that up. And then, it would be that one of the two of you determining whether that comment and that dialogue meets our standards before it broadcasts, as opposed to having damage done and having to retroactively do the best we can. A great example on a weekend. I don't want Amanda to be burdened on a weekend of trying to police comments if somebody goes rogue and puts a bunch of garbage up. Same with you as administrator. I think the safest bet there is to find a way to enable that. And maybe it's something we turn on and off on the weekends or when we're not, at the end of the day, that kind of thing. But it's a tool, it's a resource, it's something we could easily do.
There are some of those settings on there already, and it says it's not monitored 24 hours a day on certain comments and messages and things like that.
Yeah, just a matter of exposing, right? So if we put a post up there or something offensive and everybody in the community's driving by the page, or it can have some it can have some impact. So if we can screen that beforehand, it might be something worth considering. So I'll leave that up to the two of you.
Sure, we're happy to talk about it.
Yep. So the only changes it sounds like would be in the second paragraph where we're paring down from 4 administrators to 2, being myself and Mr. King. And then as far as deleting comment, and we haven't had to delete a lot. So I know there's a lot out there. It's very rare that has happened. I can maybe count less than 10 times since 2014 when we implemented this page that actually happened. So so it's not a lot, but it sounds like just those, myself and Mr. King, would be the ones for removing content. And if that were to occur, either him or I would do that. But that sounds like it pretty much is the only other change to the policy. Okay.
I think the one other change was just, I guess, the second sentence in the 4th paragraph says the HR communication / manager shall be the only person. So to my eyes, that should read the HR or just put township administrator, since we've defined that term up above, shall be the only people to remove that content.
Okay.
Yep, that was the other one.
Just to make sure there's a backup there. I mean, I think it's fine to leave it, and I think it's appropriate that you would be the primary administrator and all that other stuff would stay the same. But just in case, again, someone's on vacation or something happens immediately and someone's at the lake and doesn't have access to the internet or whatever, there's somebody that can do it.
Two of you through the whole document, I think is the smartest approach.
And we could either approve this tonight with the changes that have been discussed, or if you guys have a special meeting, we can bring it back at that, or we could bring it to the May meeting. So I'll let the board decide how they want to move forward with it. If they're comfortable with what we talked about, I think Mr. King and I could work together on changing anything, and then just adding that to the resolution, the changes discussed.
Yeah, I think we've identified the changes. I'm okay with approving with changes.
Okay,
It's on record,
Fine.
so we're good.
okay. Well, thank you. I'll work with Mr. King.
Great. Thank you. I make the motion to approve resolution 20-197, the adoption of an Orange Township, Delaware County, Ohio Facebook policy with changes.
Second?
Trustee Rivers,
Yes.
trustee Grumbles,
Yes.
trustee Taranto.
Yes.
Thank you.
And while we're on the subject of Facebook and information out there, I do, Jen Keggy with the Health District, I believe is watching tonight and had asked if we had any questions or is there any information out there. I think the Health District's done a wonderful job with the COVID-19 and trying to get information out and keeping the public informed. No real new updates, but was curious, is there anything that we would, questions or things that we would like to ask or see put out to our residents?
They have done a great job, and thank you, Jen, for that. I think they've done such a great job that I can't think of anything else that we would need them to do.
I would just echo both your sentiment that I think that our county has really set the bar in a lot of ways. When you look at the communication and the teamwork, the calls, I've sat in on a couple of the calls they've held. Thoroughly impressed with their with the entire emergency services community in our county. And their engagement was pretty stellar before. I know some of the handouts they brought to meetings in the past that I attended, that they were shared with me, the statistics and the data on that. I thought that they did a wonderful job before, and not surprised to see them step up and really knock this out of the park the way they have.
I will say that both Chief Noble and I are on a health district weekly community partner call on Wednesdays at 3. And they go through and they provide updates for specific community partners. And we have shared some of that if it's appropriate for our area, or we're allowed to share that. And I know that every day at 1:30 is when they provide the most recent updates for Delaware County. There was an issue with Delaware County, and if you were annexed into the city of Columbus or Franklin County, and some of those numbers didn't quite match together. So they did a really good job of making sure that people understood you could be annexed into Franklin County Public Health or the Columbus Public Health, and your numbers are there, but you live in Delaware County. So that was some of the debacle last week, but I think they did a really good job of making sure that residents in the community understood why those numbers were a little bit off. And they also provided us with a bunch of brochures and information when we did initially close our parks down, are posted at the park locations, on park boards, it's posted around trails, it's posted, just another safety feature when they recommended closing down play structures as well. So they did provide us with some of that communication out to our residents, and we have had that out and online.
If I could just add real quick, having the ability to work at a state level through this pandemic, I think one of the things that I picked up on is the fact that we are very lucky to have Delaware General Health District and the people working there. Seeing some of the other working relationships in some other areas of Ohio, we're very lucky to have them, and I can honestly say that working with them, even though this is a pandemic and nobody wants to be doing this and working through this, it has been a pleasure working with those individuals.
Mhm. Great, thank you.
All right, we're going to enter into executive session. So I think for everyone on the call, we've covered your report. I'm going to ask that you can hop off, and there's no need to hang around. You're free to stick. You're free to stay on if you want. But if we've covered what's on the report, it's not necessary. And then Andrew, I'm going to ask Andrew King to join our executive session. So Lisa, we can have Andrew call the roll when we return.
Okay.
That way
you.
you're free to go.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Hi, thank you.
I make the motion to enter into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of an employee or public official.
Second?
Trustee Rivers,
Yes.
Trustee Grumbles,
Yes.
Trustee Taranto.
Yes.
Michelle, are you still here?
Yes, I was gonna ask, do you want me to turn the YouTube off and then create a second YouTube, or just mute everybody?
Yeah, just to be safe, we'll just create a second one. And
Okay.
unfortunately, since you're the IT expert, I do need you to stick around.
No problem.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks.